Now that we know the entire lineup for HHN 33, including the scare zone that just officially was announced by Universal while I was filming this Enter the Blumhouse, which is located in San Francisco and essentially will be a salute to all things horror, but mostly Blumhouse. Based on the announcement art, we can see that Megan, the Grabber, the Butcher, and Babyface Killer will all be featured in the zone, but who knows who else from Blumhouse's history of horror will show up. And with that officially announced, we now know our 10 haunted houses and 5 scare zones for this year's event. So with that information given to us, I'm going to give you my Hypelist ranking for the haunted houses that will be featured at this year's event. I will be ranking them from 10 down to 1, with 10 being the house that I am least excited for and 1 being the house that I am most excited for. Now, a minor disclaimer in terms of this video in general, I feel like I say this every year when it comes down to making a hype list for this event, but I would just like to say that I feel as if all 10 of these haunted houses genuinely feel amazing, and I know that the creative team worked really hard on bringing all of these to life. So with that being said, I think all of these houses will be great no matter what, and a hype list is essentially just measuring my anticipation for all of these haunted houses. But enough of that mumbo jumbo, let's get straight into this list with my number 10, Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodlines. Now this house will most likely be gorgeous, and it will probably be one of the most scenic houses at this year's event. However, I just feel like at this point, Universal Monsters is becoming a played out concept. And while there is a new story for this house, I feel as if this house will have a very similar tone to the past Universal Monsters house. Now the jarring difference between this house and the past monster houses is that this house will have an all-female led cast, which is insane and awesome for this kind of haunted house. But altogether, based on everything that's coming to this event, this house itself just doesn't move the needle for me. Coming at number 9, we have A Quiet Place. I think this house could be very fun, as it is an experimental house, and according to Universal via the Discover Universal podcast, this house is going to be an evolving week-to-week thing, which means that it won't be the same product on week 1 that it will be in the closing week, which in theory sounds great. However, this house just doesn't seem to get my attention when it comes down to it as a haunted house. The movies were great, the concept in the films makes so much sense, but I just don't know how they're going to make the concept work as a haunted house when almost all of Universal's houses are loud and in your face, completely unlike the films. I feel like this house would be a complete 180 and could either be really good or really bad. We just have to wait and see how they execute this. Now we move to number 8, which is Goblin's Feast. This is one of the houses in which I truly believe it's going to depend on how it's executed to get my actual opinion on it. But it seems like this house is going to be a jolly good time, but essentially just looking at it, this house will be combining 2 houses that I don't really care for as much as I do for others, and those being Spirits of the Coven and Dueling Dragons. Now if this house were to be executed closer to something similar to Wicked Growth, I think it could possibly be one of the best haunted houses at this year's event. But it all comes down to how this house is played out. But as for now, as it is on paper, I'm just not as excited for it as the other houses that are coming to this year's event. Now moving to number 6, we have Monstros, the Monsters of Latin America. I wasn't lucky enough to see this haunted house last year out in Hollywood. It won House of the Year, which is fantastic for them. So getting the chance to see that house here in Orlando is a huge plus. And to add on to that, this house will never not remind me of my first ever house, Urban Legends La Llorona, because of how aesthetically pleasing it is in terms of looks, scares, and everything in between. But I will say this, I feel like if this house is in any way, shape, or form similar to the Monsters house that we had in Hollywood last year, I think it's going to be a good house. Just as long as it's not a scene for scene copy of that house, we should be good to go. And now we move to number 5, which is Triplets of Terror. All I have to say about this is original slasher. I'm so stoked for this house. It's the fact that Universal has not done an original slasher this event in so long that this truly feels like we're right at home. I cannot wait to see how they pull this off, and if they pull from any other slashers to get ideas on what they do to execute this haunted house. But all in all, I think that this house will be amazing, and the fact that we get to see not just 1, not just 2, but 3 original slashers from Universal's creative is simply mind-blowing. As we move to number 4, we have Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Back in 2019, the Ghostbusters house we had then was such a good vibe, loved by everyone. From the music to the ghosts, I thought it was a perfect house. And now this year, we're going to revisit the Ghostbusters in a new light, with a new film that released earlier this year. I feel like if they bring that same kind of energy that they brought for the HHN 29 version of Ghostbusters, then we might have a great all-timer in our hands in terms of fun haunted houses at the event. I truthfully can't wait to see what they do with Garaka, Slimer, and everyone else. I think this house will be our fun house of the year, but it can also be scary. Hopefully, we'll just have to wait and see how it's executed. Now moving into our top 3, and I'll be 100% honest, all 3 of these houses can really go either way. way, they're all houses that I'm beyond excited for. But at number 3, we have Slaughter Cinema 2. From one beloved HHN sequel to another, we have Slaughter Cinema 2. The original version of this house was truly iconic and led to so many iconic haunted houses that came from its roots. So it leads all of us to believe that they will do the exact same thing here with this one. Now, we already know 3 of the rooms that will be featured at this house, and those are Heavy Metal Hell 3D, Mardi Gras Murders, and something to do with Christmas, just because that's what Universal told us already. But just based off of those 3 alone, I'm so excited to see what else Universal will bring to this house and how they will execute this in general, along with what other creative Slaughter Cinema films they will display on the big screen for the drive-in. And now moving to number 2, we have Insidious The Further. If you didn't watch my Insidious house commentary video that I put out earlier this week, I strongly recommend checking it out, as the house from HHN 25 was one of my all-time favorite houses ever. The scare level was turned on to 100, and I feel like this year's house will be a little bit of the same thing, as this year's house will feature all of the demons from the Insidious franchise and a bigger budget altogether. And just on paper, I truly feel like this house might be one of the best Blumhouse houses they've ever put together. Just think about the sheer size of it compared to everything else they've put out over the past few years. We're in for a banger here, you guys. And finally, my most anticipated house coming to this year's Halloween Horror Nights is Major Sweets Candy Factory. This is the number 1 house on my hype list for a couple of reasons. The first of those is that this is a prequel to a scare zone that we all loved, and it was Sweet's Revenge. Secondly, this is one of the dream HHN houses that I finally get to see come to life, and that alone makes it feel so surreal. The fact that we're going to essentially see the whole Willy Wonka-esque horror inside of a Major Sweets theme is perfect. I can't wait to see how they put this together and just how the sets are going to look for this house in general. But all in all, this house seems like it will be so perfect for everything that I wanted to see, and that's why I'm so excited for it. I can understand if you're not as excited for it as I am, but this is the house that I cannot wait to see with my own eyes. And just like most of the things at this year's event, I'm so excited for it all. It all features things that I truly love and care for when it comes down to Halloween Horror Nights. I also feel like this whole event will go down to me as an all-timer, and it will truly be unforgettable no matter what happens. But hey, that's my hype list, and I would love to know what yours is as well, so let me know down below. While you're down there, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you guys already haven't done so, and stay excellent, my dudes.